Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Caught on the Mic. Joining me on the podcast today is Connor Pohl of the band Violet Night. Not violent, violet, like purple. Anyways, they have some new music and a new album coming out soon, and we have a fantastic conversation about the origins of the band, kind of the mechanics of what goes into his songwriting, and just how he cuts loose and relaxes. Check this out. I know you're going to enjoy this episode. Connor Pohl of Violet Night joins me on Caught on the Mic today. As always, listener and viewer discretion is advised. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Caught on the Mic. You know I like talking about music. Moreover, I like talking about music and songs that have themes that I can relate to. Here's a brand new band, or newish band on the scene, a band called Violet Night. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't, but I hope after this episode you run over to your streaming platform and you check them out. Connor is joining me on the show today. Connor, how the heck are you?
You hear like a little golf clap? That'd be cool if we edited that in. I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me. But it'd be cool, like for the Price is Right, come on down,
Well, then we need to do the Price is Right negative siren.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm great. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
Fantastic, man. I am so glad we finally made this happen. I think we made 3 or 4 attempts to make this connection, and I'm glad we finally got it going on. I've been on vacation this last week. I know you're from Canada. I was in Mexico.
No, I'm just kidding.
I was in Mexico this last week, and my buddy was at a neighboring resort, and he shoots me a text. He goes, "Have you ever seen so many Canadians at one resort at one time?" And I'm like, can you blame him?
Yeah. Yeah, it do be cold up here sometimes,
Awesome. Well, let's talk about the project. What is the origin story of Violet Night, and how did it all come together, and when did you start putting music out?
Well, this is a story all about how my life got turned right upside down. I was in a band called City Light Vigil, and it was like a pop punk kind of thing. And I had been in a few bands with like my brother and friends, throughout high school, like I think cutting my teeth, so to speak. And we put like probably 20 grand into an album, and then everybody bailed. And I was like, I just had this really strong desire and drive to keep doing it. Since I was like, I don't know, I was just a very small child. I've always kind of had this thing in me that's just like, go, 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 and to do it. It picks at me if I don't. And a wise fella that I know, one of our mixing engineers once said to me, if it keeps you up at night and it picks away at you, then don't stop doing it. And here we are. So in any case, the keyboard player in this band, who's been on a hiatus for a bit for personal reasons, mental health reasons, he and I, we've been best friends for over 10 years, probably closer to 15, probably longer. Anyway, when the other band kind of, everybody went their separate ways, my brother didn't want to do music seriously, and he was the drummer in all my formative bands. And the other fella that I was writing and playing with, we had a great chemistry, but I think he just wanted to do some like self-exploration, so to speak. And I just wanted to go hard at music. And TJ and I were best friends, and I was going to do this solo project. And I was like, well, instead of doing a solo project, like, what if we just did a band? We always talk about making music together. It would be special. You should just do it. I had to convince him because he wanted to go score films. Like, that was something he was really wanting to do. Thankfully, he didn't. And we started doing this. And then 5 years in, because, I think I read somewhere that after a band releases 32 songs, generally, like, it's like 10 years of work, 32 songs are like the two different things, and it seems to be like a real commonality when bands finally start to get that momentum going.
Right.
And it there's variables, obviously, but so yeah, 5 years in, Tay, our drummer, joined. And he's been with us for quite some time now. Love the guy, great players, and I was a fan of his work in other bands that he was in. So sitting down to have a meeting with him, because like he was playing in bands that have been on Warped Tour or stuff like that, right? So I was well aware of who he was, and it was cool that he was a fan of the project, and now he's one of my best friends. So it's kind of all just worked out really well, and that's kind of how the project came to be. And I think what's nice about it is that it started out very subdued, indie and soft, but as it's progressed, it's kind of spread its wings, and there's such a wide range of colors that we use on the palette that we choose to like color the project, so to speak. And I love that because it's creatively, like, it's very liberating to not have any rules set and to do, quite frankly, as an artist, it's a self-indulgent thing. So to do whatever we want is really nice. And to be warmly received is just such a huge bonus.
I think that's kind of a commonality with a lot of newer music that's coming out, is it truly is free of the reins that maybe were around, like the old school standard and the old school way of writing and producing music. Like, you don't have to fit it into a mold as much as the industry used to expect people to. Speaking of which, high compliment, I could tell the pop punk roots when I was going through the pop sensibilities that are laced within Violet Knight's music are fantastic. And
Thanks.
as a former musician myself, I was like, oh yeah, I hear a little bit of Third Eye Blind in here, I hear a little bit of this, I hear a little bit of that. Who are some of your influences? You talked about coming from a pop punk background. Who are some of your influences then, and who are some of your influences now?
Well, like, since the 5th grade, I have loved Blink-182, and I've been fortunate enough to meet them a handful of times, and like, you meet your heroes and they're really kind. That's always nice. Tom DeLonge has a pretty profound impact on me. But my heroes are artists that I think build something bigger than themselves and adapt and grow and reinvent and change, the artists that don't do it again and again. So like Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance, David Bowie is probably my top 3 for sure.
Yes.
Right. From the 70s, you got Ziggy Stardust. The 80s, you've got the Modern Love, Let's Dance. He totally shifts and recreates himself. Then the 90s, I'm Afraid of Americans. And even in Death with Black Star, like, he told the story of dying. Like, that is another level. You see like some guys doing it, like Tyler Joseph from 21 Pilots, the world that he's built. It's very reminiscent of what I think Mike Hem did in the mid 2000s.
Yes.
But it's still very cool and still very much its own thing. I don't think, like, he's inspired for sure, but it's not like he's ripping them off. He's created something wholly unique and beautiful, and I really respect and admire him as well. I love Matt Berninger from The National, the lyricism, the broodiness, Ian Curtis from Joy Division, rest in peace, I don't know. I have so many heroes but in high school, I didn't want to sing. It was all shredders. So it was like Kirk Hammett, Sinister Gates.
Right.
And I could like 6-string sweep arpeggios all day, and I could never find a singer. And then when I started writing songs, there was this shift where I was like, oh, I'm not at that. Like, I don't want to shred all day. I want to write songs that, kind of encapsulate things that I feel inside in a way,
Yeah, and you find that if and this is no diss on anybody by any way, shape, or form, but you find whenever you work in projects with people that are shredders and that are like really, really over the top musically, that sometimes they're not writing in service to the song. Sometimes they're writing in service to the other musicians that could be in the audience, so to speak. It's like, I want to write this big, long, soaring technical piece. And it's like, cool, man. I just want to write pop songs.
Yeah. It's like, cool, man. Nobody cares. You know what I mean? Nobody fucking cares. Well, nobody seriously it's like, I don't, I get the shredding thing. I get the
Right.
Jason Becker, and I loved Eddie Van Halen. Like, I don't even think Eddie's a shredder, because he was a great writer too. They have so many great songs. I think a lot of it is guys that, like, I don't know, too much navel gazing for me. Too much like And that and like this like this holier than thou because it's so technically advanced. But I mean, you know what? Nobody cares. Like read the room. People love songs they can sing along to. People will dog on Nickelback all day, but last time I checked, they're still selling out arenas. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, it's funny. I wish I could had the actual statistic out in front of me, but how consistent they are selling out arenas and have been for 20 plus years now. Boy, does that make you to feel old?
yeah, I mean, I have a mutual friend with I know a guy that's friends with Chad, and I know like for sure that Chad like often takes a private helicopter just to go watch the Canucks play in Vancouver. Like it's very from his place, I guess, from what I understand. Like, I mean, he's living pretty good, I think. That's
Yeah,
what I get from that, you know? Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So, kind of taking that look backward approach, let's talk about the single, Does It Even Matter?
Sure.
Because in the description of that song, it's talked about how we romanticize the past to a certain degree. And I know as a podcaster myself, it's kind of a very easy thing for me to lean on nostalgia and talking about what happened before as opposed to kind of talking about what can happen tomorrow. So let's talk about the organics of that song and kind of what that's all about.
It's funny that this is happening today because I actually just had a conversation with a friend about this today. And just because, he was talking about, oh, like, he struggles with sleeping problems and insomnia. And I was like, yeah, I was right there. And I said, the funniest thing about it is when I used to struggle with stuff like that, is that I would be like now I for some reason romanticize some I guess I always find the beauty in negative spaces. Like there's these things that I look back on that I think a lot of people would perceive as negative. Like I have fond memories of. So like when I was a kid, like 13 or 14, I was in the hospital for like well over a month and I was quite sick. I my appendix burst and it was gangrenous and my blood was toxic and all this other stuff. Um, yeah, I didn't understand like the severity of my illness until I got older and like read the medical report, but I was like, oh, I definitely didn't feel well. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but like there's moments that I was in that hospital that I'm nostalgic for. I think God rest her soul, my grandmother, she was a retired RN and she would just sit by me in the chair like all the time, read to me, stuff like that, because I just couldn't sleep in the hospital, kind of being a kid and stuff. And but I guess I always find the positives when I look back to times that were negative. So when I'm going through a hard time, I'm like, does it even matter? Because it's like if I'm happy, sad, or in between, does it matter? Probably not, because I know myself well enough to know that as much as something could suck at the moment, I'm going to look back and find the thing that made it good. Because which I think
Yeah.
is I think it's I was not always like that though, you know.
I think that's something that comes with you with age, comes
Yeah,
to you with age.
yeah. It's like you turn into an actual man and you're not like a teenager anymore.
Right, right. Well, you understand consequence a lot more as well.
Yeah.
So your sense of optimism changes, your sense of pessimism, unfortunately, I feel kind of grows a little bit, but
Oh, I'm like crazy optimistic, to be honest.
the thing is like ultimately you have to like realize that at some point in time that behavior and that attitude is a choice. You choose to be pessimistic or you choose to be optimistic, and usually your outcomes in life tend to align with that.
Oh, 100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I always use this reference when I tell people about it. I'm like, if you were a professional high jumper in the Olympics, you would not run at that high jump and be like, "Yeah, gonna fail. Let's go."
Right.
Why
Exactly.
would you psychologically condition yourself to be a failure? Because that's all you would be. You have to. I don't know. I think I would hate to think that confidence could be like misinterpreted as narcissism, because it's definitely not the case with me. But I think you just have to be confident and like believe in what you're doing. And I mean, I really, really, really believe in this band, and the new record is like it's insane to me. And I'm really thankful the reception of the first three singles has been so positive, because like there's better songs on the record that are still not heard. So it's
Woo!
hot, man.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it because the first three singles are fantastic. The
Thank
other
you.
two singles being Vampire and Ferrari Red. I was literally just listening to all three of the songs that you've released so far before we started recording this session.
Cool.
So, we kind of talked about the themes of Does It Even Matter? Does the whole album itself in its totality have an overarching theme or overarching feeling to it?
I once wrote into Chat GPT, I put all the lyrics that I'd written for the record in there and said, in 2 sentences, sum up what this album is about.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's 2 different versions of what Chat GPT says that the record is about thematically, because I could say it as well as I want to say it. But I think when you put all the lyrics of the record into Chat GPT and it spits out 2 sentences and 2 different versions of what it thinks that could mean, I think it's cool, right? Because it's literally what the lyricism is, distilled down to.
Right.
The record is a high-energy, emotionally charged album that blends themes of existential reflection, fame, love, and identity with dark yet playful lyricism, set against a backdrop of alternative rock and synth-driven soundscapes. The songs explore personal struggles, nostalgia, and the search for meaning, all wrapped in a bold, stylish aesthetic that embraces both the glamorous and the tragic.
Oh, man. Who needs writers anymore when you have Chat GPT?
Well, for me, I think I summed it up pretty well in a similar vein. But Chat GPT, I think when you punch stuff into there, it does have, it does have a very, for me, it's more a little bit about existential dread, and yeah, it's just the record is it is all related. There is concept. It is not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally, and it totally correlates to what I've heard so far and what my audience is definitely going to hear. Do you feel that your themes, as far as what you write, have evolved over the last 5 years since the release of Anti-Hero?
Yeah, with Antiheroes, it was that record I wrote during my Insomniac phase largely. And I don't know, that record I think is a beautiful little snippet of my existence, I guess. They're all little snippets of existence.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
record, I remember writing Ferrari Red and laughing because I thought I was this is so good. I thought it's ridiculous and it's good and it's so honest. So many of the lyrics are so self-reflective and just painfully honest that it hurts, and Vampire, which was inspired by Wednesday Addams, that's a product of, so there's a lot of people have been well, who is that song about? What famous iconic character? So if they watch this, they now know it's about Wednesday Addams. Girls like Wednesday Addams,
Yeah.
I think every guy has a certain affinity for a girl like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Or at least they have at some point in their life.
Yeah. And I was just home over Christmas. My flight had been canceled because of some crazy snowstorm. So I made a little makeshift studio at the house in Toronto. And I don't know, that Netflix series, Wednesday had just come out. And it was doing that thing where it goes through little transitionary phases on the screen. And there it was, just slowly burning into the TV. It was Wednesday Addams. And I was I'm going to write a song for girls like you. And that's what really was the...
Amazing.
I would say it's grown and changed for sure. I think every day, I think I'm a better writer than the day before. And I always think we haven't released a proper LP since Antiheroes in 2020. We've had EPs, but this is the proper follow-up because that record is really special to me. And I think it has stood the test of time and I still really love it. And I feel even stronger about the new one. So
how has your feelings evolved about the way music is released now versus 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago? The trickle out process of promoting an album where you trickle out a single and then a couple of months later you trickle out another one. Do you have feelings about that one way or the other?
Oh, for sure. They're strong. I think that the metric a band should be used for to measure their worth, in my opinion, as an artist and creative, is if you're an artist that can grab me with a full length. If your LP is great, awesome. I think that bands who have a song that people like, they never really establish that connection with the listener in the same way.
Agreed.
And they don't have to, there's nothing to prove like, oh, we did one good song. Well, it's much harder to make a cohesive body of work with several great songs.
Yeah.
um eh, the roll-up process, I don't mind, 3-4 singles before a record comes out. I don't like putting every song out as a single then releasing the record at the end because there's one song left and because now we're playing the DSP game. I don't like how Spotify's changing how people write,
Agreed.
people, like, they're starting songs with choruses because you have 5 seconds to get the listener's attention, and if you don't get the 5 second, like, they're most likely to skip within 5 seconds, but you don't get paid till 30. So
Yeah, it's crazy because it's almost like everything in the world is now algorithmic driven. Like it drives absolutely everything. And that is one of my more favorite questions to ask different people at different levels in the music industry because people have such bold feelings on it. I will tell you honestly, most people will not express their true opinions until I stop the record button on it because not everybody is a fan of it for exactly what you said. There are a lot of artists that like putting forth their complete effort all at once, short of the single initially launched to promote the album. But other people don't mind it as much.
yeah, for me, I feel like I'm a pretty honest guy, and I think that, well, I think honesty is important because there's nothing fun about talking to like, nobody wants to, like, for one, if an interview is super safe, it's like, why don't I just
Yes.
watch, you know what I mean? Like, give me
Right.
something to sink my teeth into for the love of God. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
Like, give me the details. I want to, like, I don't care like what time it is on the watch or how it looks. I want to know how it works. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I'm like and so for me, I think, yeah, it's one of those things where, I love full albums. What I don't like is that I think, like, a lot of the social media games that people are playing now, um, what always bums me out is when artists, like, go really hard at playing the social media game and then it doesn't translate for them into streams. Let's say they pop off from some sort of viral sensation song. Very rarely does that, like, I've seen reels with millions of views and then the song used in the reel or the TikTok still only has, like, 20, 30,000 streams. And it might be an amazing song. And oftentimes they're great songs. I
Right.
guess what bums me out is it's like, why is it not, like, this is not in our case. I would say in our case, our streams and people actually listening to, buying and downloading the music would surpass the other side, because I've always been a big believer that if you write good songs and it's just if it's good, it will find a way. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter otherwise. It doesn't even matter. So I
Well played, sir.
yeah. I mean, for us, it's like right now we've got 3 songs in heavy rotation on Sirius XM. So I'm like, we must be doing something right
Right.
because um and I mean, I do have, like I said, a stupid belief in the project, like a ridiculous amount of belief in it, but also just, I think being a black sheep is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, not being, I don't know, because we get pressured sometimes. Like, we do the odd reel, from Tay's house or whatever, and we do put some of that kind of stuff out. But I don't think I'm ever, like, I could eat shit on this and be that guy. But you could quote this and maybe I become some sort of influencer. But I've always wanted to be an artist first and foremost, and, like, I'll play the game to an extent and make reels that are still artistic and tasteful. But I think the ones that are like the McDonald's of social media, they kind of make my skin crawl. Like, the insincerity is palpable when you watch people do it. I'm like, no.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's weird because there are such extremes of it. I call it influencer culture. There are such extremes of like good content and like just easy to consume bad content, and your descriptor of McDonald's is absolutely perfect. Because the McDonald's French fries, they smell good, they taste delicious, but 10 minutes after you eat them, you're feeling like shit.
Yeah.
So
And yeah, I don't know. They're like, but if you go eat, like, fries that are cooked in beef tallow and seasoned nicely and freshly hand cut, you're like, those were good fries today. You know what I mean?
right.
Well, it's about the process. It's about the details. Like, the team we have working on this record is an incredible team of engineers, mixers, producers, mastering engineers, what have you. artists, everybody in their own right is so dedicated to their craft. And I think that's what you get when you have a culmination of people that care so much. You get a record like this one.
Yeah. You know, and kind of going back to utilizing things like Reels and TikTok and stuff and how music launches nowadays. And you were kind of talking about how sometimes the streams don't match the playthroughs on the Reels. Do you think that's because the delivery system is so instantaneous that the end user is not searching it out because they know they're going to hear it again in another reel or another TikTok, possibly?
A lot of the younger generation that I teach guitar to, I mean, like the 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds,
Hmm.
a lot of them listen to music like because they enjoy listening to music, but a lot of them do not. They don't listen to songs. Like they just know 20 seconds of a song they heard on TikTok. And that's kind of, I think what it is like, I remember listening to, like, for example, there's this song called Curses by a band called Bullet for a Valentine.
Hmm.
And at the very end of that song, it's like a 3.5 minute song. There's a really cool heavy part. And that, for like, the whole song is good, but at the end, there's this heavy section. Um, and I'm just thinking of like relating this in the way that that heavy section is a big shot of dopamine because it's so sick, but you wait for that payoff. You wait, you know, now you don't wait for the payoff. All it is you're like always delivered payoff. You're always engaged, always being delivering the dopamine hit. And I think that has had a pretty significant impact on if people become a music fan or not. And that's kind of my take and my stance on the whole thing. But at the same time, I don't think it's that bleak. I think, well, I mean, everybody knows when, remember that girl Gail with the song ABCDEFU.
Yes. Yeah.
So like she would be playing concerts. I think she was opening for Billie Eilish or something, and the crowd didn't know her whole set, and then would only sing the chorus of that song. I feel like it would be disheartening as an artist. Like it'd be so cool to be opening for Billie, but
Right.
also disheartening because you're like, why is this not hitting? Why is this not translating? Because I don't know. I have so many friends who are really incredibly talented artists and bands, and then I'll see like their originals not doing as well as I think they should, and it does make me go, like this is so good, but at the same time, it's just a product of the times, really.
And do you think that's kind of what leads into this interpolation culture and cover song culture that we're seeing a lot of now?
Yeah, I mean, we just played a show on Friday, and for the people there that knew our songs, like the feedback after the set was kind of like you guys would, because like one you guys, they would be like, oh, you guys would play a song, and I'd be like, this song's fucking awesome. Oh yeah, it's their song. And to me, that's the hugest compliment, because
Yes.
on a bill, when other bands are playing covers, we don't do covers. I'm not trying to be a cover band in any way, shape, or
Right.
form, but at the same time, like, I'm so proud of the songs we have written, and I'm honestly thankful that we have the catalog we do, because it's like, yeah, we can play 12 to 14 song set and it's all bangers. Like, in my opinion, live now, we should probably just play the new record, because it's like it doesn't really miss, and I adore it so much. And it's like, yeah, it's one of those things. Like the covers thing is something like I've heard where people are like, oh, do this cover of this song, like your voice would fit it great. Like, I'm sure I could really nail a Third Eye Blind, like Never Let You Go or something,
Right.
or Jumper or whatever. But I think it's just, I don't know. I see positives, and like, that band out of Toronto, Good Kid?
I have not heard them.
I think they did some sort of cover, and now it's profoundly impacted their career for the positive. So I think it has its place, you
Right.
know, getting into that mainstream. But I don't know. I actually like doing a cover. Like if I did a cover, it would probably be like Heroes by David Bowie or something. Like
Oh
something
yeah. Oh yeah.
1979 by the Pumpkins, or like, I don't know. I just feel like we're not in an area where you can do like a blank cover, because like they're still relevant.
Well, and it's honestly, kind of through this line of discussion you and I have been having, I've been thinking about that anxiety song that's been on every single reel and every single TikTok I've been seeing lately, that samples Somebody I Used to Know by Gautier. And I'm like, what? Why is this song such a thing?
It's coming back.
Yeah, it's crazy. But man, talking about doing a Pumpkins cover, a Bowie cover, man, you're speaking my language, bro.
Yeah. Well, so credit to my mother, because like when I was 4, 5, 6, 3, like she had us listening to Zeppelin, The
Right.
Doors, whatever. And I was in second grade. She got me a cassette for Green Day's Dookie. She would always work out in the house and she would crank Big Ones by Aerosmith. Like I love Steven Tyler.
Yeah.
Um, but growing up, my bands were like, I had a heavy metal phase with like Slipknot, Trivium, Avenged Sevenfold. Like I still love so many bands. It's so wide ranging. Like I said, The National, whatever. Like Death Cab was a big one for me too.
Nice.
Coldplay from 99 to 2012 is pretty much untouchable. And then
Yeah.
they kind of they went the new record. The last two were okay. They were very good. Let's be honest. But I love Chris Martin.
I think that's kind of a symptomatic thing of like people that are songwriters and truly inspired musicians, is that diverse palette of tastes, though, for sure. Like, because I've done everything. I've done everything from hip hop to screamo to metal to like ska. I was in a ska band at one point in time, and so I've done it all as
You guys have
well.
the horns and everything, or what?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
love that so much, dude.
Dude, I have a funny story. Like my very first band, my first band in the mid 90s, late 90s, we opened up for Slipknot at their very last local show before they went and recorded their debut
That's
album.
wild.
It is crazy. A ska band opening up for Slipknot. It was just the most insane thing ever.
I wonder what was the room like at that show?
So it was funny because you talk about 1998. There's a fantastic documentary called Pick It Up, Ska in the 90s, and it's so good. But it talks about one of the guys from the Mad Caddies talk about this 6 month span of time where ska was on top of the world. It was what everybody was listening to. And then 6 months later, those same people were all into nu metal. Well, that show occurred right at the cusp of that last 6 months. And so my genius ass thinking, oh, I'm an upbeat guy. Ska's fun. Everybody's having a good time. I decided to throw hard candy out in the crowd. You know how that ended up.
Yeah, did they throw it back at you?
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I had welts on my body. And it was people we knew, people that like 6 months before thought we were the greatest band on earth.
And then there you are. Somebody gets like somebody gets like a Werther's original down like their horn and just what I mean.
You want to talk about humbling experiences, man?
Yeah. Actually, so speaking of ska and trumpets and stuff, like one of the new songs on our record, we have a guy named Carmen Camieri, I think his last name is.
Mm-hmm.
And he does trumpet and horns on a song, which will probably be the biggest single we've ever released as far as radio and stuff, because it's a smash. It's called Complicated. You can quote me on this. It's got a whole horn section anyways, and he's got a Grammy. Like he's done horns for Bon Iver, for the National, and like he's done a lot of work with Jimmy Fallon. So it's like well, he's been on Jimmy Fallon, I know that much. But yeah, we have like a lot of heavy hitters like that on this record, where it's like we really spared no expense, and yeah, the proof is in the pudding.
Dude, I absolutely love that. So what are some of your interests outside of music that kind of fuel your creative endeavors?
Well, you want to know what my 9 to 5 job is? Just kidding.
I don't talk about my 9 to 5 job. I wouldn't talk about yours.
Yeah, fair. Like I'm really, I don't know, like what inspires me is usually like my own life and instances going on and things of my own life. Like the records are always like, lyrics are always in some way, shape or form, a diary of something that has had a significant impact on me. Like that gets me going, that I feel like if this is making me feel some kind of way, then if I write this, put it out, and there's kind of an honesty and an earnestness to it, then
Right.
people can sense it. Like when it's fake and you're trying to be something, I can read that. Any fan of music can read that, and they're like, oh, he wants to be this, not he is that. He wants to be this. And I think that distinction is very important, right? So outside of this, though, I'm like pretty big psychology nerd. That may have something to do with my 9 to 5. Because that's the field that I work in. But but music, I think, eventually will be the 9 to 5, just with the way the trajectory we've set and stuff. So I'm a pretty big gym guy. I'm like a get up at 5 or 6 in the morning, go to the gym guy. I'm one of those what
Good
you
for
call
you.
crazy people. I'm also straight edge. So is our drummer. So is our keyboard player. We were into like going to the gym, running, being outside, reading good books, like, that will shift your perspective,
Yes.
big fan of art forms that can shape culture. I think that can't be planned. It can only be the right thing at the right moment in time.
Yes. Yes. I think there's a whole cultural shift towards all of that. It's like, almost like intelligence and good physical and mental health is the new drug, and I think more society needs to embrace that, especially with as divisive as society is these days.
I'm really into like fasting. Like, I want to do a 40-day water fast, for example.
So do you intermittent fast at all?
Oh yeah. Like I last year I did 5 days on just water 4 times.
Oh, what was the result?
Mental clarity like I've never believed. Sleeping 12 to 14 hours a night like a rock. So I watch a lot of health documentaries. I'm super into that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah.
I read a lot like of David Sinclair's stuff. Like he's the leading expert in longevity from Harvard, for
Yep.
example. But like this one documentary I recently watched called Fasting, the Healer Within, free on YouTube. Anybody, this is gross, so you may get grossed out by this, but anybody that fasts for like over 20 days, usually not only are they still going to the bathroom, but they're still crapping out like parasites and worms. And like that's the majority of humanity. So I think what they kind of stress in that documentary is that most people are living at like 30% and they could be living at 100. So like um the fasting thing usually is interesting to people, or like I haven't eaten table sugar in 7 years.
Oh, wow.
So like I haven't eaten white flour. Like I'm really into health that way. The whole biohacking, like ice bathing, you name it, going to the gym and all that stuff. Like I just recently learned that ice bath before the gym will boost testosterone in males, but ice bath after will actually kill it. So if you're into that cold shower after the gym thing, I would do it before.
Similar effect to the type of proteins you do consume when you do consume proteins as well. Like
Interesting. What's that?
that soy protein allegedly boosts estrogen levels. So
It does.
that's why they say that girls are developing at such younger ages, because there's so much soy in everybody's everyday diet now compared to how it used to be.
Well, I haven't eaten soy in 7 years either. There's like a
No.
list of things I haven't eaten, and seed oils, soy, sugar. I had significant mental health things that were plaguing me, you could say, and all of them were remedied with diet. So
Yeah.
I'm living proof that like you can get off the pharmaceuticals, but I think for a lot of people, the convenience of pharmaceuticals is nice,
Right.
and you don't really realize, like they say, you don't really realize how bad you were feeling until you truly feel well, you know? So outside of the wellness sphere, I'm really into like, I love Nintendo. Like I'm a huge Nintendo, like I love like, the IPs. I love Zelda. I love Mario. Used to play a lot of Smash Bros, like Halo. I don't do as much gaming these days. I always feel like I should be writing or reading something or doing something more productive with my brain power. But once in a while, the boys will throw down for sure.
I love that, man. I love that. Connor, I have really enjoyed this conversation, brother.
Yeah, me too, actually, man. Caught on the mic. It's good.
Well, my closing question is usually one rooted in optimism, and I hope your response is as well. And that is, what is your advice for making the world a better place tomorrow than what it is today?
It's in that realizing it doesn't have to be some grand gesture. I think that small things have a ripple effect. Let's say, you're going out for food with somebody and you get the bill. Well, maybe they don't have a ton of money, whatever, and that just puts them in a bit of a more of a positive mood than they were in. And just that little thing puts their whole day in a more positive perspective. And then you are, you know what I'm saying? It ripples outward, and then they're being nice to more people, and then so such and so, and like it goes on and on, right? I think that is it. It doesn't have to be crazy. Like as the smallest gesture of kindness can really make a big difference, and not just in like, direct, but like it could be, doesn't have to be like direct contact with you, but the person that you interacted with, right? So that's actually my philosophy for life. Like the career that I have and music as well, it's not ego driven whatsoever. It's driven by the motivation to use my existence to make other people's existence better, more inspired, happier, whatever you need, and escape whatever you need. Because no matter, I say this in every interview, for somehow it happens. No matter what you do, I love you, I adore you. If you're listening to this, you will end up in an oblong box or on somebody's mantelpiece in a small jar.
Right.
So you know what I mean? So like nothing is that precious. That's what Ferrari Red is about. It's a satire. Paint my coffin Ferrari Red. Like, are we all that special? Well, everybody means as much as the next person, unless you're Hitler. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's caveats to this message. Like
Always.
like if you're a piece of shit, then I'm sorry, but meditate, and go live with monks for a while, for the love of God and for the rest of us.
Tell my audience where they can find your music online and more about the project.
So you can find Violet Night, and that's violet like the color purple and night like nighttime. I always make that distinction because we get violent night a lot. Because that David Harbour movie where he's Santa. Oh my good Lord, man. One time this really pissed off, concerned mom, like put an email through on the email forum on our website and was like ripping a strip off of me because she thought I was behind Violent Night with David Harbour and her kids had watched the movie. I was like, do we need to change the band name? Like,
Oh,
but
shit.
Give me a couple years and we will it'll be an undeniable thing where it's like, I think they're making a sequel for that movie. So my work's cut out for me, but I'm ambitious on the task. We will be more relevant than that movie.
Yes.
That's the belief. So, yeah, we're on Spotify, we're on Instagram. We're, if you're going to go check us out, I think you'll probably like Googled us halfway through this interview, and I love you for it. People are always like, well, what bands do you sound most like? And for me, it's like, well, we're fans of everything. So I mean, to you, Mike, what I guess it depends on your own personal cultural zeitgeist, but what do we remind you of? There's a question for the podcast host himself.
Well, honestly, when I was listening to your stuff, I heard elements of a lot of things that I'm into. I heard elements of Third Eye Blind. I heard elements of like 21 Pilots. I heard Ambition. I'm not just trying to shine ass here, but I heard something uniquely crafted, well polished pop songs with good hooks, good lyrical content. I think there's a little bit of something for everybody in Violet Night's music.
Thank you. I'm humbled by that. And real instruments.
And
I play several of them. There's some behind me there, I got the red jumpsuit over there,
Oh, I love it. Connor, thank you so much for doing the show, man. The world is a much better place with you in it.
Yeah, you too, man. Thank you.